Levarechev ve'ele basusim v'nachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir. Hema korov v'nafogu. Anachnu kamnu v'naseidon. Adonai Yeshia. Hamelech Yaneinu v'yem karenu. Okay. So we're going to start a new mimer called Yisrael. And not a very long one, so I hope we'll finish it before class finishes. Do you have it in Hebrew and in English? As you see, the blue one is in English. Translation. Yeah. Thank you. So the Maimon begins with the words Kol Yisrael, Yesh Lem Chelek Leilam Haba. Every Yid has a share in the world to come. And it's very appropriate for the time because right now the custom is in many communities, as well as in Chabad, that between Pesach and Shavuos we do Pirkei Avos. So Shabbos after Mincha, every Shabbos we learn one chapter. Well, we finished it by Shavuos, so now we start again from the beginning. We do another 6 chapters. When we finish these 6 weeks, we start again from the beginning, and we continue redoing it until we come to Rosh Hashanah, and then we'll stop. So even though there are 6 different chapters, every chapter before we say Pirkei Avos, we recite a Mishnah from a different chapter. And the Mishnah is these words, Kol Yisrael Yesh Lem Chelek Leilam Haba. Again, just that you should be able to see it inside. Here in this book on page 26, you can see the source. The source for this Mishnah is in Gemara Sanhedrin. And these are the exact words that we have in the Siddur. Kol Yisrael Yesh Lem Chelek Leilam Haba. All of Israel have a share in the world to come. Shenamar, as it's written, Bamei Kum Tzadikim, your people are all righteous. Va'ilam Yirshu Eretz, forever they will inherit the land. Neitzim Atoi, the reason why they'll inherit their land is because they are a branch of my plantings. Maise Yada Lispor, and they are my handwork, and I take pride in it. So just like Hashem is eternal, and He's there forever, so too every Yid is eternal and is there forever, and therefore every Yid will be entitled to have a share in the world to come. Now, when you see the word La'olam Haba in the Torah anywhere, in Gemara, in Midrashim, even in Maimarim, Sichas, so Olam Haba could mean different things. It depends on what context it's used. Good morning. Sometimes Olam Haba means Gan Eden, which means after the neshama leaves this world and it goes to Gan Eden, that could also be called Olam Haba. Sometimes Olam Haba is referring to the time that Mashiach comes, that there'll be all these positive changes in the world, and that's Olam Haba. And then sometimes Olam Haba specifically refers to the era of Tchias HaMesim, when all the dead will come back to life again. And that's how the Maimon begins. The Pirush Olam Haba, the Mishnah Zu, in this Mishnah, the meaning of the word Olam Haba is Olam HaTchiyah, the world of Tchiyah, when everyone passed away, will be brought back to life. This is obvious when you continue learning the Mishnah. What does it say? Then it says, and who are those that don't have a share in the world to come? Who's an exception? Someone who says that they don't believe that the Torah promised that the dead will come back to life, they don't merit Olam Haba. Why not? The reason why they don't is piece of the Gemara. It says in Gemara, who kafar b'tchis hamesim, being that he denied tchis hamesim, the fikach la'yileh chedek b'tchis hamesim. That's why he won't have a portion in tchis hamesim. Mida connected mida, as we know that Hashem does things measure for measure. So being that it says that a person doesn't believe in the resurrection of the dead, that person will not have Olam Haba. So clearly Olam Haba means when the dead will come back to life. Otherwise it wouldn't be mida connected mida, it wouldn't be measure for measure. Now the Rebbe is going to explain the difference between Olam Haba, that's referring to the era of Chiyas HaMesim, when everyone will come back to life, and Gan Eden. That's where the neshama goes after a person passes away. Both are considered a reward, but there's a huge difference. What's the difference? The Gan Eden, when it comes to Gan Eden, Mi Yala Bahar Hashem, who will be able to ascend and climb the mountain of Hashem? And then it concludes, only people that are in the Ki Kapayim, that have clean hands, Ubar Levov, and pure hearts. Which means, Sheyeshnam Kama Tnoyim, there are many conditions, but they allow us the Gan Eden, in order to go up to Gan Eden. In order for the neshama to be worthy to go into Gan Eden, which is a place where Hashem's presence is revealed and it's a tremendous reward, the person has to deserve it. And there are conditions. Afilu the Gan Eden hatachton. So we'll see later in the terms that there's Gan Eden ha'elyon and Gan Eden hatachton. I think you have the terms here in the booklet. Do you? Should be here. Maybe not. We have the questions, but we don't have the terms. No, we do have terms. Yeah, page 30. Look at page 30. It's much better if we do it as we go along. Finally realize at the end of the year, and it's easy to remember. So number one is Olam Atchiyah, which means the world of resurrection, which means the era when we'll be brought back to life. Page 30. And then we have number two and number three, Gan Eden HaTachton, Gan Eden Elyon, which means even though we use the term Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, that's where the neshama goes after it leaves this world. But there are two Gan Eden. There's a higher one and there's a lower one. Those that are tzaddikim, more righteous people, they go to the higher one. And others go to Gan Eden, but they go to the lower one. And in general, that's the way it's put, the higher and the lower. But to be more specific, it says in Chassidus, they're actually infinite levels of Gan Eden, higher and lower. In each world, in each realm, there's a higher and there's a lower. So there's many, many levels in Gan Eden. So even for the neshama to be able to enter the lowest level of Gan Eden, there are certain conditions when you can enter. Regarding the world of Chiyas HaMesim, Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Chelik V'Haba. Every Yid has a share in the world to come. This point that not everybody can go into Gan Eden, and there are certain people that are excluded from that. Generally speaking, when the neshama goes up l'mayla, there's also, by the way, a misconception about the whole subject. There is Gan Eden, which is the Garden of Eden. That's a place of reward. And there's Gehenna. Gehenna means a place where the neshama goes through punishment. So it's something which we don't talk a lot about in Chassidus. We don't focus on it. Some people make the mistake to think that in Chassidus, or those who follow Chassidus, don't go by that. There's no such thing. It's part of Torah. It's in the Torah that there are two places in heaven after the neshama leaves. There's Gan Eden and Gehenna. So number one, we don't look at Gehenna as punishment. We look at Gehenna as a process of cleansing. That the neshama, when it does an avera, it does damage to the neshama. It causes blemishes. It causes stains, and because it has these these things that happen which cause damage, the neshama is not able to enter Gan Eden. So the whole purpose of the neshama going to Gehenna is just a process of cleansing or a process of repairing, that the neshama should be able to enter Gan Eden. That's what it's all about. And ultimately, every neshama goes to Gan Eden. In fact, the Gemara says that the reason why people say Kaddish is that to make things lighter for the soul up there, it shouldn't go through so much of punishment and suffering. And we know that one is not allowed to say Kaddish more than 11 months. And the reason is because even in the worst case scenario, that is enough time for the soul to have all its cleansing and all its healing. And by that time, the soul goes already into Gan Eden. There's no need to do that. But even though every year when the yahrzeit comes around, people say Kaddish again, but that's not about taking it out from a negative place to a positive. That's about going from one positive level to a higher level. So with the neshama, there's such a thing that there's Gehenna. But the whole purpose of that is only to go to Gan Eden. And here is saying there's certain people that their situation is so severe that they not qualified even to get to Gan Eden. To give an example of this, the Rebbe in footnote number 5 brings an example. So I just thought it would be interesting to look at the Gemara, because this is a famous story. Might as well see it inside in the source. So if everybody wants to pick these up and give it out. Thank you. More, yeah, of course. So, what you're going to read here is a famous story, but it's a good idea to read it from the source. Tan Rabbanan. Like this is like all stories that are found in Medrash, that we read the story as it appears on the surface, and we understand there's much more depth to it. Tan Rabbanan, our sages taught us with the checking. Arba nichnasu lepardes. There are 4 that entered the orchard. So the word pardes, orchard, is a term that's used in Gemara, but it means an orchard is a place which is very pleasurable, full of fruits and all sorts of beautiful flowers. But it's a word that alludes to the deep mystical secrets of Torah. Who are the 4 people that they took a journey into this spiritual place? Ben Azai, Ben Zayma, Acher, and Rabbi Akiva. Omalem Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said to them, when you come to this place, in this spiritual realm, Al Temru Mayim Mayim, don't say Mayim Mayim. You'll see something that looks like water, but it's really not water. And it says, Hashem says, those who speak false words should not be able to be standing in front of me. So therefore, if you're going to say Mayim, when you see that, you might have to be rejected. And then it goes on to say, what happened to the 4 people? Ben Azai, one of the 4 people, Hitzitz v'meis. and turn the page, which means he looked into these deep secrets, but it was so deep and overwhelming that it caused him to pass away. All about Kosovayman, there's a pasuk that says about this person who was a great tzaddik, Yokor Beini Hashem Amavsul Chasidim. It's precious in the eyes of Hashem, the death of his righteous people, meaning that his passing was a result of his experiencing something so high and spiritual. Ben Zayma hit it the nivga. It affected him mentally. That you ate honey, ate too much, and it might hurt you. Acher, there's a third person, they call him Acher. Acher means the other one. Kitzitz benetias, which means that it affected him in a way that he lost his faith in Hashem. He saw things there which he didn't understand, and as a result of that, he lost his faith in Hashem. Rabbi Akiva, Yotze b'Shalom. Rabbi Akiva, he came out, the only one that came out untouched, which means he came out healthy and a tzaddik, and nothing happened to him. That was only Rabbi Akiva. Now, this person who said Acher really has another name. His name is Elisha ben Avuya, and he was one of the Tanaim, meaning one of the sages that are part of the Mishnah. And he became an unbeliever, which is very unusual. Didn't happen to anyone else. And he had a student, his name was Rabbi Meir. And this student was always trying to get him to do tshuva. So on top of the page it says, Rabbi Meir asked a question. Acher, so I didn't explain. So because his real name was Elisha ben Avuya, but because he became a heretic, so the Gemara doesn't even want to mention his name. They say Acher, the other one, meaning to say he's not that person who we always knew. Even though we still find in a few places, in Pirkei Avos actually, where it is called by his name, Elisha ben Avuya, which means even after he lost his faith in Hashem and he became a heretic, we still quote things from him in his name, because before he was a righteous person. So he once asked the mayor, what is the meaning of a pasuk where it says gold and glass cannot equal it, neither shall its exchange be vessels of fine gold? What does it mean? If it's referring to the Torah and praising the Torah, it should compare Torah to gold, not to glass. And he said to him, it's referring to Torah, which is difficult to acquire, like gold and fine gold, but it's easy to lose, like glass. It could just break. So Acher said to him, Rabbi Akiva, your teacher didn't say that. He taught something different. He said that just like a gold vessel and glass vessels have a remedy even when they're broken, so too a Torah scholar, even if he transgressed, has a remedy. So Meir said to him, well, if that's the case, if you return, you do tshuva, you have a remedy. So he said, no, for me it's too late. I heard sort of a heavenly voice which said, return rebellious children, everyone except for Acher, like you have no hope. And therefore I don't want to. And I'm not even going to try because they already announced that I'm not going to be accepted. Then it goes on another story. Turn Rabbanan. Ma'aseh ba'Acher, there was a story that happened with Acher. He was riding on a horse on Shabbos, which in itself is not permissible. And he was, we don't have the English here. Okay. He was riding on a horse on Shabbos, and Rabbi Meir was walking with him. And by the way, the Gemara says that all the rabbis distanced themselves from him because he became a heretic. Rabbi Meir was the only one that was still studying Torah from him. And the Gemara asked, how was he able to do that? And the Gemara says he was able to eat the fruit and throw away the pits and the peels. In other words, he was able to make sure that he only took what's positive and didn't get and didn't take in any of the things which are negative. Normally, once a person is a heretic, you don't learn Torah from him because he has these ideas in his head, and it's going to come out in the Torah that he teaches. They tell the story about someone who once he would travel and speak in different communities, and he was one of these people who belonged to the Enlightenment movement. He became an assimilated Jew, but at the same time, he went to yeshiva when he was younger, and he was very knowledgeable. He was a scholar. So he came to this town, and he asked permission. He'd like to speak. So he said to him, "No, we're not going to have you speak." And he said, "But I promise you, I won't say anything that is my own. Everything I say will be from Medrash, from one sefer, a different sefer, another sefer. I won't say anything of my own. You have nothing to worry about. I'm not going to say anything which goes against Torah." Said, "No." So he says, "Why are you saying no? You don't trust me? You don't believe me?" Said, "No, I believe you, but still no." Why? So they told him that kosher meat that's cooked in a treif pot is also treif. They weren't just sort of insulting him. They brought out the idea, why is kosher meat, if it's cooked in a treif pot, why is it treif? The meat is kosher. So the answer is because the treif pot absorbs treif in it. And then when you cook meat in the same pot, some of the taste of the treif meat goes into the meat that you're cooking. So the same thing is here. This person has treif ideas, not kosher ideas in his head. So when the words of Torah come out of his mouth, even if it's just Torah, but his ideas somehow will come through in what he teaches. They'll get stuck in what he's saying. So therefore, only Rabbi Meir, the Gemara says, was such a great person that he was able to separate and listen to what he says and sift through it. That he only took the words of Torah and he left out anything that could be the opposite. So again, he said to him, "So you're a Talmud Chacham, you're a Torah scholar, that you abandon Torah. Now you can do tshuva. You just quoted Rabbi Akiva said that you can do tshuva." So he said, "No, not me, because I heard this heavenly voice that said everybody should return except Acha. There's no hope for Acha." Then it goes on to say that he stopped the little child and asked him, "Tell me something you learned." And every child brought a pasuk which was not good news for him. And then the Gemara says the following. This is the last 2 pages. When he passed away, the heavenly court declared that he could not be judged, and which means he cannot be in Gehenna and he cannot be in Olam Haba. He can't be in Gan Eden. Why? He can't go into a place of Gehenna because he learned so much Torah that because of that he can't go into Gan Eden, in Gehenna. But he also can't go to Gan Eden because look what happened. He became a heretic. And in fact, for such a person to become a heretic is much more severe than an ordinary person. He learned Torah and he knew everything. And nevertheless, he rejected it. So it's much more severe. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir said these words, "Mutav d'ladaine v'leisadama de'asa." I think that it's better that he be judged in Gehenna by doing, even though officially he's learned so much Torah that we can't bring him into such a place. But on the other hand, if through that he'll go through a process of refinement, the process of cleansing, and he'll be able to go to Gan Eden, so then it's worth it. And therefore he concluded that when he passes away, I will make sure that they bring him to Gehenna, so he should go to Gan Eden. And you'll see there'll be smoke coming out of his burial place. And that's what happened. When Rabbi passed away, there was smoke coming out of his grave. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan, who lived much later, and he said, "Is that an accomplishment that a student makes sure that his rabbi should go into Gehenna? I'll do something better. I'll make sure to take him out of there." And therefore you'll see, Rabbi Yochanan said that when he passes away, the smoke is going to stop. And that's what happened. When he passed away, the smoke stopped. This is the story that the Rebbe is referring to. So here's a person that did not qualify to go into Gan Eden. And the fact that eventually he went in, which means he went through the process of Gehenna, and then 100 years later he was able to go to Gan Eden, that was only because Rabbi Meir, his student, and Rabbi Yochanan, these great two spiritual giants, prayed for him. But in his own right, he never would have even made that either. However, Tchias HaMesim is different. Kol Yisrael, that's what it means when it says Kol Yisrael Yishlam Chelek L'Nabah. Every Yid will have a share in the world to come. When Mashiach comes, and all those that passed away will come back to life and enjoy the time of Mashiach, that every Jew is part of. There's nobody that's excluded from that. And here the Rebbe's question is as follows. The godly light that's going to be revealed in the era of Tchias HaMesim. Unayla Harbe Yosef is so much greater than Gan Eden. Not only greater than the lower Gan Eden, it's even greater than Gan Eden Elyon. Not only, remember we said there are many levels, it's even greater than the highest level of Gan Eden Elyon. How do we know? How do we know that the time when Mashiach comes, when the dead will come back to life, is going to be greater than Gan Eden? And the answer is very simple. This is what it says in the bracket. The proof is the process of Tchias HaMesim. What's going to happen to Tchias HaMesim? All Yidden will rise, which means even the Shamas that were in Gan Eden for so many thousands of years, and 3 times a day, every day, they go higher and higher and higher. Especially tzaddikim. Just like we daven 3 times a day, Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, the Neshamas in Gan Eden also have 3 times a day where they ascend to a higher level in Gan Eden. But we can imagine that the tzaddikim, when they passed away, to begin with, they were in a very high place in Gan Eden. And then they're there for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they're constantly ascending higher and higher. Imagine those that are there for thousands of years, how much they've accomplished and how much they've reached. Nevertheless, what's going to be their reward? Yislabish begufim, that when Mashiach comes, they're going to be back in the physical body and be here in this spiritual world. So it must mean that the Gilu Delamatchilu Nahar Be'Yesem Gilu Gan Eden. That means that what they're going to experience when they're back in the body is going to be infinitely greater than thousands of years in Gan Eden. And therefore, this is what reinforces the question. In order to go to Gan Eden, there's so many conditions. Not everybody can get there. But to go to Tchias HaMesim, which is so much greater, everyone's going to be part of it. How do we reconcile these two things? Normally, it's the opposite. A smaller reward, there's less conditions, and a higher reward, there are more conditions. And here, for the smaller reward, not everybody will merit. But the higher reward, everybody will merit. How do you explain that? Base. This would be explained by first explaining Let's explain first, why is it higher? How is it higher? L'cheira, Kivan Shegan Eden who oilam neshamas. Gan Eden is a world where there are just neshamas below gufim. It's a neshama without a body. Oilam atchiyah, when we talk about the era of Tchias HaMesim, it'll be neshamas begufim, a neshama in a body. So what could be the explanation that oilam atchiyah, what we're going to experience as a neshama in a body, will be greater than what the neshama experiences without a body? We know that normally is the opposite. The neshama itself, the capacity of a soul in its own right, is much greater. The body limits the soul. The body is something which confines the soul and doesn't allow it to be revealed in its fullest. So it should be that the neshama in Gan Eden should be able to reach higher heights, and not the neshama when it goes back down into the body. Even though when Mashiach comes, the physical body will also be very refined. Why does the body block the neshama? Because the body is physical and the body is more coarse. So therefore, it doesn't allow the neshama to absorb things fully the way it could. But when Mashiach comes, the body itself will be so much more refined. And the body will be on a level like the soul. And therefore, the body shouldn't be blocking. The body shouldn't be getting in the way. We would compare this to the physical body of Adam Arishan. It says that Adam Arishan's body was at a much higher level than the body of all humans because his body was created by Hashem himself. Everything is created by Hashem. But all humans, it goes through a physical process of a father and a mother, and the mother gives birth to the baby through a physical process. Adam Rishon, there was no physical process. He was created directly from Hashem. So the term that's used is, he's a creation of Hashem's hands. Shayamaka Galgal Chama. It says that the light of his body sort of blocked the light of the sun, meaning to say that his physical body was a source of light. That's Adam Arishon. V'yisayim is there shalasad lavan, and the truth is when Mashiach comes and the guf will be resurrected, that will be even more than the body of Adam Arishon. Why do we say that? It's explained in different places that how is it that when Mashiach comes, the body will be eternal? And now it's not like that. And the answer is because right now, for this very same reason, right now, the physical body is created through humans, through the father and the mother. When Mashiach comes, who's going to create the body? Hashem himself. Being that Hashem is eternal, so his creation will also be eternal. But even Adam Rishon didn't live forever. So the fact that Hashem will recreate the body, and the body will be there forever, means that the body, the way it'll be when Mashiach comes in Tchias HaMesim, will be more refined and more spiritual than even Adam Rishon's body. So therefore, it won't be blocking. So it's not such a wonder that we say that when Mashiach comes, will be in a higher level than the Neshama in Gan Eden. So the Rebbe says, after everything's said and done, it still doesn't explain how a neshama in a body will be able to achieve more than neshama without a body. Because after all, the body is still not a soul, and therefore it still has to be limiting the soul to some extent. This only explains why the neshama in the body, when Mashiach comes, when there'll be Tchias HaMesim, will be able to absorb things that we couldn't absorb now. But it doesn't explain how could it be that the Asad Lava, Yid Dafka, the neshama is begufim, that the neshama will be in the body, and even though the guf will be very refined and the guf will be very spiritual, but it's still physical things still have more limitations than things that are spiritual. For example, the limitations of time and space. Physical things are limited by time and space. First of all, space. Like you can't connect two things if there's a wall separating them, because there's something in the middle. So how could you bring it together? You can't be here and there at the same time. When you talk about things that are not physical, let's say two people, could they be connected if there is a wall in between them? Yeah, not only they can be connected, but the wall doesn't even get in the way. If they're connected, they love each other, one is on one side of the wall, one on the other side of the wall, that doesn't take anything away from that connection. Or if there is something in the other room that you want to understand how it works, and you're studying it, you're thinking about it. Just because it's in the other room and you're in this room, it doesn't mean therefore I can't think about it. I can't understand it. I can't analyze what it's all about. Because in the world of intellect, in the world of emotion, it's not limited by space in this way. And the same thing with time. That a person could be connected to things that existed 20 years earlier, or 10 years earlier, or 30 years earlier. But when you're dealing with things that are physical, every unit of past, present, and future is separate one from the other. And also in space, things are separated. So in general, things that are physical have certain limitations. Things that are spiritual have less limitations. And if that's the case, how could it be that the neshama, which is not in the body, should be able to absorb and achieve and reach more than the neshama that's in the body that's limited? I was once part of a group that we went to Shlichus in Australia, 1967. So before we went, Shabbos, the Rebbe spoke about it. And the Rebbe spoke about the fact that the Mitzel Rebbe, second Rebbe of Chabad, he asked his Chassidim to go and establish a community in Hebron. And that's when Chabad began to be established in Israel by the Mitzel Rebbe. So the Chassidim said to the Mitzel Rebbe, but what's going to be with Chassidus if we go to Hebron? As long as we lived here, either we travel to the city of Lubavitch, or sometimes the Rebbe would travel in different places, so they had the opportunity to hear a mimer from the Rebbe. But if they're going to go to Israel, I mean, how often could they come in to hear something? So the Mitzel Rebbe answered them that I'm going to send you all the mimarim that I will say, or not all, but many mimarim that I'll say. I'll write it down, and I'll send you the written manuscripts of the mimer. And that is what appeased them. So the Rebbe asked the question, but how did that really answer that question? The Gemara says that when you're listening to a Rebbe who's teaching Torah, you gain from what you hear, but you also gain from seeing his face. There's a certain radiance in the face of the Rebbe, the tzaddik, when he teaches Torah, and that itself also helps us with what we need to understand. So true, they're going to have everything in the manuscripts, but they don't have the advantage of seeing the face of the Rebbe. So he didn't really answer their question fully. They're still going to be missing out. What was the Rebbe's answer? And again, the Rebbe was referring to the group that's leaving, we're going away to another country. And those days was before internet and all this. So actually you won't be, even though you might get the written copy of what the Rebbe spoke by Fabrengen, but you don't see. So the answer was that if a person will picture in their mind, these Chassidim will picture in their mind how they remember the Mittel Rebbe and how they heard a mimer from the Mittel Rebbe, it'll have the same effect as if they're seeing him right now. Which means that it's not limited in space, in time. They saw the Rebbe 10 years earlier, and right now they're picturing his face, and because they're picturing his face, it has all the effect as if they'd be seeing him right now. There's a story brought down also in the Sikh of the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the group of Chassidim, they were Chassidim of the Tzemach Tzedek, and they were talking among themselves, like reminiscing about the times that the Rebbe was there, and things that he said, and they sang a certain niggin of his, and they all stood up, and they were all very emotional, and singing this niggin, and the Frierdiker Rebbe said, there was no doubt in my mind that the Tzemach Tzedek was there together with them. Chassidim have that power that by picturing the Rebbe's face and connecting to him, the Rebbe comes to them. So that means that we don't have the limitations of space, we don't have the limitations of time, because it's spiritual. But physical, there's no such thing. If it was there in the past, it's there in the past. It's not here now. And the same thing with space. If there's something blocking two things, they can't connect. This is one side of the ocean, this is another side of the ocean. But two people that love each other could be 1,000, 10,000 miles away from each other, and the connection could be just as strong, if not even stronger. So we remain with the question. So how's it possible that the Gashmis they could go up, which is limited, is not gonna is gonna allow us to neshama to reach a higher level of understanding Hashem, not just higher, so much higher that it's worth it for the neshama who spent thousands of years in Gan Eden to come back down into the Gadi and experience God that is down here, and that'll be more than anything to experience as a soul without a body for thousands of years. How can we explain that? Okay, we'll stop here. To be continued.